little side jobs that I have is, besides being a tracker, I get to go flying every once in a while, doing aerial telemetry for the Lion Project here in Southern California. If you look in close on either wing strut, there's a antenna array, and what we do is we're going to go out and monitor for the signals that come off of the collared lions.
Barry, Neil, Nate, George, and Mark are looking for the site where a mountain lion stashed its kill. They are in Warner Springs, California.
And it had been hanging around here for about 8 days. It had a kill site. Mike came out later after the flight and located the kill site and took a GPS coordinate. And we were hoping to, go to the GPS coordinate and find the kill site. Unfortunately, either the GPS coordinate was off or we got bad directions or something, but we're not finding the kill site. So we're looking for Mike's tracks or the kill site or the lion, or any combination of those. And
What's the kill site look like?
Well, we haven't been to it yet, so we don't know, but basically it killed a small deer and a coyote.
The team splits up, each searching for signs of the lion. As always, signs of other animals turn up along the way.
Whoa, that was close to the eye.
Yes, deer energy.
Deer energy. The hat channel's right down. I put it up like this. When I'm close to a deer, it goes like this. Deer where they digest their material.
Yeah.
I'll use this as dowsing.
Dowser, yes.
They are crossing.
Soon enough, they find some tracks.
So should we just kind of stay put?
It's kind of hard to tell where to put the measuring implement because you've had some degradation around the edge of the track. It's hard to see where the real track is.
And sign. This is where the lion scraped the ground to mark its territory. They know they are close. A scrape. And finally, after climbing past boulders and coming to the shade of a live oak tree,
you hear about it, but to see it actually is not that common because often a cougar's kill is left alone by other animals, but on occasion a coyote or a bobcat will try to take advantage of it. And if the cougar catches them, they get killed too. And sometimes you find, in this case, the coyote right on top of the deer. That is freaking awesome. Now look at that. See the blood?
oh, nice. Oh.
Classic cat bite to the back of the head.
This is no pup.
No,
These teeth right there are all worn down, and usually they have 3 lobes on them. Some of them even have 4, and the 2 teeth in the middle are gone.
canines too.
Yeah, the canines are broomed down. This is an old coyote.
Indeed.
Yeah, probably 6 years is what I'd say.
So these are some of there's so much stuff here. Look at how they break the large leg bones. This is very characteristic of a cat kill, and they eat the marrow inside. And out here, the little coyotes typically don't break the large leg bones, or bobcats, so that's a great sort of indicator of lion. We look for the marks, bite marks in the scapula, but you can see pretty much killed the deer. I mean, it is done. I don't think he could have eaten too much more.
I mean, we're so ingrained with like storytelling and all that kind of stuff, like listening to people talk, I learn, and seeing, I learn, and looking in books and reading, I learn.
If you're thinking of certain kinds of patterns that you learn to recognize in engineering, maybe patterns of learning or recognizing patterns that are existing in natural systems, then you could try to apply the same techniques in other fields, like in this case, tracking, and see if it works. Some cases it does, and then you realize it's more the way you're thinking rather than what is out there, because there are like widely varying fields.
I'm always blown away. I'll find something in a book and be like, wow, that's cool. And then I'll find it in the field. And it's like, weird. And it's like, and I think it's just that one little file card that I didn't have. Our minds are so interesting.
There's a point where your logical mind and your intuition and instincts really sort of merge, and tracking is a really amazing field for that to happen. And with that, anything instinctual is fickle. There's some days where you're on and you're seeing those tracks and they're popping out and you're moving, and there's other days where you're struggling for the next track.
I think right now where I'm at is I've gotten really into trying to figure out why I know what something is, or why I think I know what something is,
Yeah.
So I'm definitely into the process of being like, okay, you've got 4 toes, very symmetrical, short claws showing, super stubby, very little distance between the toes and the metacarpal pad, blah, blah, blah.
You're never the same when you're outdoors again, because you become so much more aware of what's there. And it's kind of fun to sit down next to a trail and watch the people rushing by you.
More and more it's just kind of fun to do, and kind of a neat game, and to see if we can get better at it, and it's a way to connect with the woods and the animals, and just to learn a lot.
There'd be just a whole ton of stations, and we would just walk along, and I remember drawing stuff. They'd be like, well, just draw it, I say they, this was Paul Hofdeline and Gabe Spence, and back in the day, and I'd draw things out, and slowly I'd be like, oh, I can kind of, I couldn't tell at all, looking at these tracks on the ground, what it was, but then I'd draw them out and be like, oh, I can kind of see something, and sure enough, it was like a possum,
I think the really small mammals like the shrew and stuff is definitely one that I'm not as comfortable with, and that's sort of one that where it sort of points out how there isn't anything too functional about being able to track shrews, I think, but it is really neat to be able to do it, and so I'm into trying to figure it out, and I'd love to try and figure it out, and it's that's where it's like a game.
The evaluation specifically, I think, is a neat opportunity to look at a whole bunch of things, be forced to look at things that I would probably just skip over, or say I don't know what that is, but actually have to stare at it for maybe 20 minutes until I have an answer, and then discuss it with a bunch of people who spend their time staring at the dirt and stuff, and see if we agree on what it is. And it's the best it's definitely the best tracking learning experience I've ever had.
I'm always trying to figure out, okay, what is Mark gonna say about this? And could I convince Mark that this is actually what it is? Or is he going to be like, this is the obvious thing? And so I'm always trying to be like, what is Mark seeing there? And that never works. Yeah, I mean, I think the second guessing, like we've said, it comes from lack of experience. I mean, once you've really known a track well enough, second guessing isn't a problem. So even the ones where I knew it was that, but I second guess myself, well, if I really had seen that track a lot and really known it, then that wouldn't have been a problem. We need to study up on the non-mammals, I think, a lot.
Amphibians and invertebrates.
Yeah.
I was sitting over on that edge of the pond, and the beaver would swim, literally come right up to about 5 feet away from me, right up to my feet almost.
Wow.
I remember watching the beaver once pack up the mud on just like this, start to pack it on the part of the dam that was damming up over there, and all of a sudden it would fix something and then turn away and then kind of look back and then go back and fix it a little more, and kind of can't just leave yet, gotta get it just right. And this is right at my feet.
And that I would have just countless opportunities every day to learn something about wildlife, as well as to encounter them. In a very real way, I was interacting with wildlife. Tracking it gave me a very real and tangible relationship with certain animals. And I would see that animal react to my presence. I was learning things about animals that I couldn't find in books. I was learning about individual animals as opposed to populations, and it was very personal. And so from that way, it was very rewarding.
And like I used to think though that you really needed to have species specific, like here someone's doing a coyote project, go out and evaluate them on like coyote and similar large animals like that. But I've really totally come around on that and really.
But I think some people will be turned away. Some researchers definitely, of course, will be turned away because their field staff only needs to know how to identify raccoon tracks, because we're studying raccoons.
You can like evaluate people and all that, and then just look at everything, and then look at the results in terms of the
looking at the raccoon and the raccoon-like species.
Right. And so, and like what we do with the River Otter project. Right. So you can you can test them on everything,
and
still get your
data.
level, and then just look and say like, okay, well, if you really want to know how people did, look at the data, and you'll see that so-and-so got all their coyote tracks right. So this person's really your best, coyote tracker, even though they might have got somewhat of a lower score. But the chances are that people who are good at tracking are good at tracking it all to some degree. You know what I mean? I'd say that the system's not perfect, but after watching and participating in like 6 evaluations, I've really started to support it. So much of it is the way it's conducted, and I think it just says something that the fact that we tested like 23 biologists and told them that their data was bad in Texas, and that they were like, okay, when can we do more evaluations instead of like, screw you guys. You see like good, certified wildlife biologists, and they don't know trees and plants and birds and tracks. And right, it's just that it's like the whole belt system in martial arts, like we were saying. It's like, and so really it's just like, physical and, mental, maybe in personal life enrichment. And so I think a lot of people do tracking for that same reason. Retired people and stuff, just like find it fun, interesting, stuff like that. But
what I think is interesting though is Adrian last night mentioned just in passing about how there's some sort of evaluator committee that oversees the evaluation process and makes decisions and keeps the standards, and that's in South Africa. And I see a need growing as the U.S. develops and uses the evaluation more and more to have their own committee, and who will interact with the South African committee and go back and forth. But I know things are different here. This is a different environment. There's different needs here, and there's different uses for the evaluation, and so there may be some adaptations that may need to happen along the line with the evaluation.
To me personally, major satisfaction when I give a tracking certificate at the end of evaluation, knowing that the standard is right, that there's nothing came for free, you work for the thing. I've had a number of situations like that. One that specifically comes to my mind is a 64-year-old Shangaan man who had never been through any form of evaluation in his whole life. And he's working as a tracker at a lodge. He received his certificate. He went through the process the first time, and he scored a level 3 tracker. In other words, track and sign and trailing. And when I gave him his certificate, he wanted to stand up and say something, and he couldn't. And he sat for half an hour with tears going down his cheeks. It was just so phenomenal to see. And eventually when he could speak, he said, "It's the first time in my life that I ever received anything for something that I can do." The other thing that I think is amazing was I grew up very dyslexic. I battled at school. And I went through many exams, many frustrating tests in my life that every time I feared when I went into it. And the first tracking evaluation I went into, I didn't experience fear. I focused and concentrated from first light to last light for a full week, which was amazing. And then I realized that evaluations, assessments, tests is actually not something to fear. It's something that's your ally. Western schooling have turned it into something to fear, both the assessor and the assessment. But what I experienced was a safe harbor to pull into on my journey, and just look at something that can give me a reflection of where I am.